Coming soon to Indie Ball, Orion Victory Lap. Find out about what on this week's episode of the Bar Report podcast. Yeah, all right, back again. Episode number 322. 22 as in the amount of runs Quebec just put up on Windy City. How you doing, Ryan? I imagine better than Windy City is.
I mean, both teams only use two actual pitchers, and they have to play again tonight. So call it a draw.
Yeah, sure. We'll call it that in the sense of like each guy in the duel only used one bullet. Now, of course, one guy hit a tree and the other one has a mini round ball lodged in their throat. A draw, sure, why not?
Look, if you don't leave a draw covered in a pink mist, you're doing it wrong. What happens between two consenting adults at 30 paces should not be the government's business. Forever my take.
Paces.
You might as well use a knife. Grow up.
We do have one piece of news this week that we probably should discuss here. And that is an update on the Aberdeen situation, which goes back to what we mentioned just a few moments ago with Ryan taking a victory lap. Because if you'll recall, some time ago, he mentioned the possibility of one affiliated minor league team being relocated. And said minor league team, he caught a lot of crap for. He said, this team will not move. There's no way they'll move. They're in a good setup. And that team that we're talking about, of course, is the Harrisburg Senators. And I know what you're thinking. How is this an Aberdeen update? How is this an update to anything? Well, here's the basic facts of the matter. The Frederick Keys are poised to announce that they will be going back to affiliated ball. The expectations that will be for the 2026 season, so that's next year, meaning that the Keys are going to be out of the draft league. Just because they're leaving doesn't mean that they have a spot to go, right? They have to take someone's spot in affiliate ball. Well, in the article that is linked in the show notes, it threw out a variety of possibilities. That includes Aberdeen, which is already in the Attain profile, which would make it a nice, easy one for one. And I think it's still the front runner for that. We've covered that in the past as to the situation. However, two of the others that were mentioned were the Delmarva Shorebirds, which do seem like a new name into this whole mess, and the Harrisburg Senators. Those would be your three real league contenders. Chesapeake was also brought up here, but I think they're pretty well safe at the moment. But yes, Aberdeen and Harrisburg seem to be strong possibilities to be getting kicked out of affiliated for the Keys return, which would then present yourself with the opportunity of where do they go. So, Ryan, if you'd like to take your victory lap on Harrisburg.
Yeah. Well, I'll also step in and say I think Delmarva is, I think that's what's the word? I don't want to say it's like a decoy. I think a distraction. I think it's going to be Aberdeen to Frederick. I don't see any way it isn't. I think that they're maybe trying to create, this is my opinion, I think they're trying to create a little bit of, it's up in the air what's going to happen, because it looks gross if you're just like, you own both teams and go, this is a more profitable option. We're investing in this. We're going that way with it. Sorry about it. I think being like, it was an open discussion and this is what happened, whatever. But keep in mind, that's what Diamond Baseball Holdings does. So like they have no qualms about it. So whatever, man. Because Delmarva, so there's a bunch of funding that's coming into all these ballparks across Maryland. And we've briefly discussed this at some point. And Delmarva is included. So there's no way they're going to make a big investment into that ballpark and be cool with them switching. Now that same investment package is what is boosting Frederick right now. That same thing has been, now this is where I'm fogging on the details of what's behind the scenes. But what we know is that package has been available to Aberdeen, and it does not seem to be they're taking it up, which of course would be the owners of Frederick, which is frankly a better market because we're the worst ballpark. That is interesting that they're in charge of both ball clubs. They've taken it for one. They have not taken it for the other, though maybe the deal comes with like, you have to maintain your like status or be minor league, whatever. I don't know. But openly being like, I'm showing my ass on this a little bit because I don't know the behind the scenes details of how this funding works. But it is interesting that funding has been made available to both sides. They are saying they're going to use it in Frederick, or in Aberdeen, but it has not shown up with plans with Aberdeen, but it has shown up very aggressively with plans in Frederick, and they're both owned by the same organization. It just feels like it's obvious what's happening here. I would also
let's also put out there,
there
too that
Yes.
in case of Aberdeen, you also have Josh Harris and his group coming in that have said we want to go in there and redevelop into a more of a youth store complex for the whole thing and have the main stadium be turned into something else. So that is another factor in there too. Just because there's funding out there does not mean that's going to be funding towards the end goal of a professional team. It could be funding towards the end goal of more amateur athletics.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot it could go to. I'm just sort of, there's a few ways that could go. The question is what happens to Frederick later. That's a different conversation. But I think the interesting part is, Frederick is, let's bring it back to indie ball for a second. Frederick, off the table for indie ball, it would seem. And which is funny because they were indie ball. That deal was happening. It was on the move. They had a team 2 years ago. They had a brand 2 years ago. I will be interested to see if the Spire City Ghost Hounds comes back because it is a strong brand. I like it a lot. Or they lean back to Frederick Keys. That would be interesting. Back on the other topic, which is how this relates to some of these other organizations, tying it back to Harrisburg. Now, Harrisburg is a Dime Baseball Holdings club. Some of you may know I have issues with it. Believe it or not, I don't love the fact that a third of all minor league baseball teams, yes, a third of all minor league baseball teams are owned by the same private equity company. You might think I don't like the fact. Yeah, and you might think it's a little strange even that the company is run by people who were intimately involved with the cuts that were made to minor league baseball years ago. And now there's rumors of more cuts coming soon. And I have a funny feeling about what organizations are going to be okay. Don't you? I do too. Now, here's the problem. Now, I know some of you might be new, but friends in Pearl, welcome to the party. I hope you've enjoyed your first week of indie ball. We are going to take a fat dump all over the people that screwed you off minor league team here. Because as the friends in Pearl know, they got hosed because basically Dime Baseball Holdings comes in and goes, well, we need all this investment. Pearl, Mississippi is like, political and municipal malpractice to throw money into a ballpark right now. We are Pearl, Mississippi. Look at the numbers. We're not doing that. And then go, well, we might be a $1 billion plus multi-billion dollar corporation, but we're not going to improve this ballpark. We're going to get a new one built for us in a more desirable city. Eat it. Sorry, Pearl. Out. And then Pearl gets an indie ball team. Whatever. I have been saying since the jump, this is going to be the basic business model for Dime Baseball Holdings. They come in, they say nothing is changing, it's all the same, we're excited about the community, these people involved. But then after a year or two, they go, oh, but we just need a little more from this community that we said we're so invested in, that we said we're invested in, but you need to invest in us. And then they can't to this amount that they want, and then they go either to a prearranged deal somewhere else, or maybe they hold the town hostage and get a new ballpark. Depends on how they want to do it. That brings us to our friends in Harrisburg, which is, I'm a Pennsylvanian. I know Harrisburg well. I'm an Eastern League guy. I live in the footprint. Harrisburg, if you don't know, is on an island in the middle of a river. There is no room for added business. There's no room for extra retail. It's surrounded by a city park and parking lot and water, and it floods. And with that, it is a very, it is a vulnerable spot to be in for a team. And the moment that was announced that Harrisburg was now a Dime Baseball Holdings organization, an alarm sounded in my head. And if Dime Baseball Holdings, God forbid, takes control of a team that you care about, let it really ask why, what the motivation is. Because I said, why would they want that place? There's no way you can pump extra revenue out of it. There's no way, because they're private equity. So it's about profit. Where could the profit be here? You can't expand. You have limited construction ability unless you're going to pour your own money into it, which are you seriously? So the only options would have been they want to try to get a ballpark moved out of that flood prone area into an area where they can develop the land around it because the real estate is what's valuable. And then or they're trying to move it to another market. And I'm bringing it home here, I promise, because what seems sketchy was getting a ballpark that is going to need constant repairing because of the every few years flooding, the upkeep and all that. When really what they bought with the Harrisburg Senators wasn't the Harrisburg Senators, it was the development rights for that organization. So you can become a minor league team, having the rights to being a minor league organization. So now you have that, and you can kind of go where you want with that thing. You can dangle it over Harrisburg and say, do this for us. And if they can't, then you're leaving. And all of a sudden in this article about Frederick, when they say, well, maybe we'll do, maybe it will come from Aberdeen. Maybe the team will come from Delmarva, who we know that's BS. There's no way that's going to happen. Maybe Harrisburg. There is no way you just pull Harrisburg out of your pocket. This is not Diamond Baseball Holdings, obviously, it's Attain, unless it is legit conversation. Because remember, Attain is motivated to at least be like, look, there are conversations that have happened. And to say Harrisburg means Harrisburg is looking to make a move. Someone at least came and knocked on the door and was like, hey, what's going on here? So it's just another wake-up call. This is the whole thing. A wake-up call to Diamond Baseball Holdings is not your friend. These private equity companies are not your friend. Do not trust them. Do not support them. Fight against them buying teams. If you hear that they are trying to make a deal, be a pain about it, because it is a vulnerability. If you look and they go, why would you want to buy our little team? Because they don't care about you. And they're doing it right now. They're doing it again. They did it in Pearl. They did it in California. They're doing it here. They're going to continue to do it. This is the business model. Because when you have the development license, this right to have one of the 120 minor league teams, that's valuable. It's guaranteed business with potential prospects coming through. And it allows you to get better deals with cities, better deals with loans, better deals with all the construction stuff that you need to do to build a new ballpark and screw a town. And that's what's happening again. It's going to happen in Harrisburg. It's probably going to happen it's happening actively in California with Modesto. It's going to happen again and again. This is the model. I don't want to be that guy, but like, it's the thing of like, okay, it doesn't affect you. Don't speak up about it, but it will affect you. They own a third of the teams. If there are cuts, like there's rumored to be in 2026 to minor league baseball teams, that will cut 30. That means they would own 40 plus of the 90 minor league teams. Keeping in mind also, that's just Diamond Baseball Holdings. Private equity currently owns about 60% of the minor leagues. Sorry, I did a rant again. I'm sorry.
I feel like I should come up with your own theme music for the rants.
That's fine. Do it. I'm so dead inside.
You seem it.
I'm so mad. You keep trying to warn people. Oh no, they said all the things. He said all the things from the last press release in the last town they screwed. Cool, dude. No, it's different in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Hey, Altoona, dig deep. Dig deep. Are you a cash cow?
It'll be different. I can
You're
fix
dedicated
them.
to the curve.
I can fix them though.
I'm calling dibs on the trouble with the curve headline for when they get abandoned as well. Last story, and then I'll move on. I interviewed with the Altoona Curve this past offseason.
Oh, yes?
Yep. And then I couldn't. I did get asked to do a second interview, and I was like, I think I'm good. But I asked about Diamond Baseball Holdings and what's like, and like, do they affect the day-to-day operations? So like, no, it's all like the convenience thing, like bulk buying, things like that. So no, they don't really have any input on the day-to-day. I mean, of course, if we miss our goals, they want to have a conversation. Oh, okay.
If we miss our goals?
So
what goals will those be?
They give you a target and they say, we don't care how you reach this target. You better reach it. And if you don't, well, guess what? It sounds like Diamond Baseball Holdings is pretty involved, and they don't seem to care about the city of Altoona. They care about the budget line, which they are free to do as a business. They are free to do that. I'm a free business said person, but
really, the main takeaway here is when the private equity firm comes to buy your team, they're not buying your team, they're buying your franchise.
Mm-hmm. They're buying the rights that you have. They're buying your right. Keep an eye on it. Or don't. You do you. That's why I cover Indie Ball.
I was going to say, a lot of this doesn't really sound like an us issue. It sounds like, if anything, we're about to get some good markets out of this.
Yeah, for sure, which is a different podcast entirely, but yeah.
I mean, if we wanted to be real cynical bastards, we'd be like, yes, continue to destroy the sport we love. It'll only help grow the aspect from which we care about.
there's a chance this creates an unprecedented rise in what I'm hoping. There have been some unpredictable risings in society. The general vibe against AI has been one, and I'm hoping we go in a direction here, which is like, yes, you have a right to put this in place. Yes, you have a right to do this with your money. However, I'm not going to support that. And as you continue to open up more and more markets that don't have minor league teams, you are, whether you know it or not, opening up competition. Now, my concern, because of their closeness with MLB and MLB's general power when it comes to indie ball with this whole partner league BS, which we continue to sit here and go, what is that? What intricacy? But they keep saying it. So there is a connection here. My concern is Diamond Baseball Holdings is heavily invested in minor league baseball. Cuts happen. They're even more the one wielding the power here. My worry is, let's say Diamond Baseball Holdings has a team that is close to an indie ball market, or is close to a potential indie ball market. What I think about a lot is during the player lockout that happened a few years ago, we had the legal right confirmed by the players union and paperwork I held to sign, protected right to sign the players. They were no longer being allowed to work for MLB. They were free to come play for us while the lockout was happening. And we were told by people within the league that we were not to do that. So if they can do that, why couldn't MLB, with whatever sway they have over some of these leagues, come in and say, you're not going to expand there? We know we just cut that market loose, and yeah, they probably could be an indie ball team for you, but you're not. That's not a good fit. We don't think that's a good fit for our relationship moving forward. Think about it. It's obvious. That's what would happen.
The only
While certain people
pushback I could see on that would just be, I go to like profit line motivator where now you're genuinely affecting the league operation, how much profit they can make, but at the same point in time, you got a current big leaguer in your ballpark during a lockout. That's gonna draw a lot of money in there. We
could have signed them and we did not. It already happened. I was in a front office that had Brandon Phillips in it. Friends with the head of the players union, friends with active major leaguers, and we didn't bring in anybody. Like, it's not a hypothetical. It already happened. MLB has more sway over this whole thing than we think. And it's because at the end of the day, there's some sort of connection that stays there. And the league seem to have a feeling that connection to MLB is a lifeline that's necessary. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. I mean,
I think it's more or less I think it's an understanding that, right, like, you are still the smallest nation on the continent. So if you piss off the biggest one, they can still wipe you out if they really wanted to. So it's more like, let's be friends with our neighbors so that way we don't have tanks on our doorstep.
And I mentioned this before in a sort of, oh God, worst case scenario type of thing. But if you think about it, say the Frontier League decides to be like, yeah, no, like, we don't care. We're not going to get involved with it. We're not going to play that game. We're going to do what we want here. And then all of a sudden, nobody gets signed anymore from the Frontier League. Now, you can say that is crazy because there's no way MLB teams, 30 MLB teams would go along with that and hurt themselves for the league's thing. But they wouldn't, because almost immediately players looking to get signed would stop going there. It's a slipperier slope than people think. It's a far more fragile balance, I'm afraid. This is such a threat in ways that we don't necessarily know. We don't even know the full scale of it.
I feel like, again, like with everything in society, it works off of the assumption that everyone's going to follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do and do what the right thing is. And the second someone starts to break that agreement and there's no punishment, now it becomes acceptable. And then all hell breaks loose. Well, on that note, you could probably gather that the Pioneer League preview is going to be its own thing. That's not going to happen this week. If a half hour in, that's not clear as day. So we're going to talk baseball now. We're going to talk actual baseball now, not
sure. Why not? No time like the present, or probably 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, we're not going to continue on with Ryan's musings about the capitalist system from which we live in. And
look, man, my goal, as somebody who's been referred to as a journalist, is to get the highest prize in journalism, which is being murdered by the CIA. Please leave that. You have to leave that. Windy City is now 0-4 in coffee cup games with a run differential of -39.
we're talking Atlantic League.
I mean, it's a 22-5 beatdown to Hands Quebec. I'm talking about it all day. What are you talking about?
All right, let's talk about Southern Maryland. They're hot as hell right now. They've won 4 straight series, including 2 sweeps over the Pennsylvania teams. They like to continue that tonight. What are we thinking about the Blue Crabs so far? We were hard on them in the preview, and even over the last week or so, we were kind of tough on them, but they look to be, I don't want to call them legit yet, but they certainly look good right now.
They've started 0-5. They won 11 of 13. They are outscoring teams 57-43 in those last 13 games. Though, I don't know, the offense slowed down this week. They only scored 15 runs in the last 5 games, but they still won the last 4 because York just couldn't figure it out. Really, a lot of this goes back to like they're finding a lot of good results out of their bullpen. 18 and a third innings pitched over last week, only 5 earned runs. And 4 of those 5 were in 1 blow-up inning from Tom King. So basically, if you take that 1 inning out, they've won 17 and a third innings, allowing 1 earned run this week. So, like, I mean, that is actually more the traditional Southern Maryland model, right? It's you survive, you pitch, you keep them in the game, and then your bullpen locks it down. So interesting to see. We'll see if that continues to play. I lack some confidence in that. Just based on the guys there, it's not the quality and consistency of pitcher that they tend to pull that off with. However, maybe the Atlantic League is weird this year. Gastonia apparently sucks. What's happening?
Yeah, we'll talk about them in just a second here. But yeah, Southern Maryland 360.
We're getting to them.
We'll get to them. We got a couple teams in the South to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, 3.60 ERA in the last 7. Their hitting's still not very good. I mean, slash at 251, 326, 384 isn't exactly, killing the game. But yeah, they are seeming to get by. I do get concerned, though, like you said, the quality isn't really overall there amongst all the pitchers on the staff here. And if you lose a guy like, say, a Semple, what happens, right? Because you lose your frontline starter, you lose a guy that can get you some innings and quality innings at that. So what does it look like if you start losing guys? And he may have lost him. I see a little X next to his name. Why is he? Oh, an active list. Never mind. That means nothing to me. So, I am curious to see what winds up happening in that regard, though, if you start to lose some of those frontline workhorses.
Yeah, that's the thing. You start to spread that thing a little bit more. And by that I mean, wow, that sounds gross. You start to spread that pitching staff a little bit more, and it starts to really ask some questions of some guys that you'd really rather use in a more protected manner. Yeah, I think that's the wait and see. Southern Maryland this week has, if I remember right, they have a fairly interesting schedule this week.
Before you get to the schedule, I do have their series from the 20th to 22nd as one of my ones to watch, and they go to York for that.
Yeah, I mean, they just made York look bad for 3 straight, so we'll see.
Yeah, they have Charleston, which they got 2 series wins.
They just took 2 out of 3, yeah. Though Charleston seems to be picking it up. That's a different conversation. I feel like their offense started to look like their actual offense this past few days.
That's fair, but even still, then they go like Charleston to York, both are on the road, and then a couple more road series against Hagerstown and then against Gastonia. Right now, those all feel winnable.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come home for another 3 against Gastonia, and that again remains winnable. Really, Long Island and High Point after where it gets tough, but they till the end of the month, it's not that bad for them.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this next 15 game stretch, where it's, as you said, Charleston, York, Hagerstown, Gastonia, is outside of Hagerstown, who is another conversation. All those series feel winnable, but also those series also feel losable. Like,
Yes.
if what I've seen the last couple of days from Charleston offense starting to show some signs of life is accurate, Southern Maryland could be in trouble that series. Then they're going to York, which, look, York is they usually do well at home, so that could be a mess. York offense just went quiet, but the York offense before that series was hot. Then going to Hagerstown, then going to Gastonia, which, you talk about a team you don't be playing on the 10th, 11th, and 12th games of your road trip, Gastonia. Then you got to come home, collect yourselves after that road trip, no off day, with Gastonia again. And then you got Long Island around the corner. That could also go super badly. So
in total fairness, though, that game on the 30th, has Trez Way in the ballpark, so they'll win that game. Because Trez Way is elite, and I have genuinely considered going to that.
That tracks. I think you've mentioned that already, so you must be serious about it.
Solely for Trez Way. It's just, God, it's in the middle of nowhere, that ballpark.
Ah, it's so far in the middle of nowhere, buddy. Tough one. Tough?
If only I was able to peer pressure someone else on this podcast into going to this shit.
Probably could.
Sounds like I should probably begin to do that.
Yeah, why not? What am I going to do at work? Yeah, I think Southern Maryland, we're going to learn a lot. These next 2 weeks are going to tell us a lot about who this team actually is.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, I don't want to get too high on them because I still stand by that preview work a lot.
Yes, I agree. I mean, look, this is still a very small sample.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking 15, 20 games in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
a lot of the teams they've been playing have either not been good or have been at their worst.
Exactly.
Although you can argue, or are they at their worst because they had to play a good team? I know, but based on what we see, it looks like they're at their worst.
That, and I'm looking at their lineup here, and it's still not that good. I mean, DeJaco is really the key piece of this.
Yeah, dude, he's so good right now.
And then you got guys like Wilson and Diaza that are kind of they're supporting it, but that's about all I'm seeing here. Even if you want to go and beyond just batting average wise, you want to look at like on base, like Chatham's nice, but he has 17 plate appearances, right? Like, what are we talking about with that here? Like, Taylor's doing all right. He started on the team, but it's only a 380. So, I mean, good, but not, eye-popping. And then it just kind of drops off from there until you start getting into guys that are like, low 300s, 200s. And it's like, I'm seeing 2 or 3 regulars that are below 300 for the on-base. And it's not like just slugging is making up for it.
They're extremely vulnerable right now, and they need to. Right now, either playing cold teams, getting good breaks. A lot of it's covered up these issues. I'm not saying that they're going to get exposed. But I'm saying like they need some things to come together here. That I'm sure they're betting on coming together at some point. They need to come together sooner rather than later, so they don't fumble this. Like, essentially golden opportunity to make a playoff run here in a year where you wouldn't have expected it.
Exactly. That's the thing here. Is that they've put themselves in a position to really do something special if they want to do it. But,
right. And let's also talk about it. I mean, this is a team that has not recruited well. They've been in a difficult spot. They do not come in as favorites. They are not having a good time with recruiting because players don't really want to go there these days. And
they got rid of their most known player.
But if you lock into a playoff spot early, you have a whole several months to start trying to collect guys who want to be a part of a playoff run. And it gives you a little more credibility. It doesn't make it that much easier, but it gives you a little more credibility and says like, hey, like this is what this team can be. You can get some playing time here. We're going to be playing the playoffs where there should be some more eyes. Like it can help you out, man. It's a big opportunity here that they've kind of walked into in the early going.
Exactly. I mean, you look at what's in front of you too. They're 2 games back of High Point for the division lead. And admittedly, that is a team that will be tougher to knock off. You have Lexington, that's a game in front of you, and we'll talk about them next in that who knows what they are at the moment. And then behind you have Charleston and Gastonia, 2 teams that we were both very high on, and they're struggling out of the gate. And they're both, admittedly, they're separated by a game between the 2 of them. If they both have a bad week, it could be curtains in the first half for them. And if you're Southern Maryland, this is your opportunity because you've got to assume in the second half, if High Point doesn't already have their playoff spot, they're going to be the odds-on early favorite to get it. You have to assume that Gastonia and Charleston will both make the moves they need to go and contend for that playoff spot. And that kind of leaves you in real limbo position here with where are you going to get it? If you can get it in right now, it saves you a lot of trouble later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. I have speaking of Charleston, I have a bold prediction, but I don't want to fully change the subject unless you're ready to.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on to the next thing here. I was going to go Lexington, but I'm open to hearing the Charleston point.
I only have one thought on the Charleston thing. As I said, I think their offense is starting to wake up a little bit and look more like themselves. But I'll say this. They got 3 against Southern Maryland this week, 3 against High Point this week. Those are the 2 division leaders. I think if they go below 500 during the 6-game stretch, like if they can at least win 3, I think Charleston does not make the playoffs this season. I think dead. They have the biggest gap in difficulty between first half and second half schedule in the league. Their second half schedule is notably more difficult than first half. Like the average win percentage, I think this first half is like 470 or 460, and it's like a 530 for the second half. Like it is. I know this team is set to improve for the second half, but like so is their opponent, their opposition. I think like if they cannot at least show something here, I think they're going to be in trouble. And keeping in mind too, they're also going to start counting themselves out of the wild card if they start dropping too many games here. It's a bold take, but I did a deep dive in their schedule, and it's not getting better. It's not getting better.
I see where you're coming from. I just think it's a little too early to proclaim that just based off of 20-game sample size.
Yeah, I'm just looking at ground you got to gain. Now, I mean, it is going to free them up a little bit more that Gastonia is not playing well, but you got to assume Gastonia is also going to get better. Because a lot of the difficulty in the second half is playing Gastonia. So if Gastonia fully commits to the bit and just sucks this season, it's like, well.
It changes the math, yeah.
So, anyway.
Interesting, yes. Lexington, though, what are we thinking about them? Are they legit? Because we're coming up on, like, we have to have that conversation. I mean, they have another good week, then you got to be inclined to say, yeah, I mean, they would have had a month of solid play. But admittedly, as of late, 6-4 in the last 10, lost the last 2. Where are we landing on them?
It's tough because you look at their wins, and from one perspective they're impressive, from another they're not. It's they took 3 from Charleston to open the year. That looks good, but Charleston's not been playing well, so it looks less impressive. 2 out of 3 from Hagerstown will never look impressive. They dropped 2 out of 3 to High Point, which is justifiable. They took 2 out of 3 from Charleston. We're back to talking about how that seems impressive, but it's not as impressive. Took 3 from Staten Island, who you feel like it's impressive because they've been playing well, but in reality they have dropped. What was it? They're 2-7 in the last 9. They're scuffling right now, so they didn't beat the best version of Staten Island. Then they dropped 2 out of 3 again to High Point. So if we're looking at teams that we're confident are good, it's like them against High Point, and they're 2-4. That's the uncharitable way to look at it. The charitable way to look at it is, they're winning the damn games in front of them. And I think we would have all been surprised to see them this far up in the standings at this juncture. I have a lot of concerns about sustainability. I think they have depth issues, and these depth issues are not being exposed when they're pitching well and they're getting good leads and their offense is showing up, and they're not really having to throw as many maybe high leverage innings as they might. But we are seeing like their second time facing teams, like second time facing High Point. I mean, High Point put up 13 runs on them the first time they played. Then they hung 29 runs on them in the second series. Like I think there's going to be a lot of, once we talk about how many of their guys are unfamiliar to the Atlantic League, and I think a lot of that you're able to ambush teams a little when you have pitchers you're not as familiar with. The second time around, a team like High Point, they're going to catch you. We saw the last game, they dropped an 18er on them. So we'll see how this weekend goes. I think it's going to say a lot about how sustainable this is. But yeah, I don't know.
Honestly,
And I
I'm
hate to
looking
be
for-
like, we'll see what this week says. Dude, this is a huge show me week for like multiple teams in the Atlantic League right now.
honestly, like the Lexington Gastonia series, it's not one that I ever really anticipated, especially this early on in the year, to be fascinating, but it certainly is.
Yeah.
Also having a double header that starts at 12:30 and 3:30 respectively is a
Rude.
call on a Wednesday. Is definitely a call. But more to the point here, I do think it really is, because you have two teams that are kind of like at their breaking point. Are they going to become legit, or what's their future going to be for the rest of the first half here? And that series does kind of show you it, and that's going to be the first time Gastonia sees them. And I think I'll be able to tell a lot about it here. It'll also be the end of a road trip for Lexington. They start that road trip tonight in High Point, so we'll see how they bounce back from it. I'm hesitant to say too much about the 18-8 blowout, because at a certain point, you're about to get on the bus to go from Kentucky to North Carolina. Maybe you just say, all right, it's time to start resting some of the higher leverage pieces here. This game's out of hand. Let it be what it's going to be. We're not going to worry about winning today just to lose tomorrow. I don't know if that's necessarily what happened.
They didn't throw any position players, I'll say that.
Yeah.
I mean, no, they might have. Let me double check. Sorry,
when you give up 8 in the third inning, and then you kind of start to draw it close to like, okay, well, it's 8-10, and then it's 3 and a 5, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's the kind of thing that I would expect to see as teams see this Lexington staff more. I think. So what I was going back to, I feel like every year there's a guy who starts the season and they like popped in off of like a D2 roster or something and pitched like 10 innings in the Atlantic League at the end of the year. They had like a 1 dot something ERA. Everyone's like, oh, okay. And then they immediately get popped to start the next season. And it's like, well, yeah, because we know them and it's not that good. And I wonder if Lexington's going to have that issue. I don't know for sure, but there are some guys who are definitely on watch for that.
That's the one thing I will talk about with Lexington here is I think we both are very concerned about the construction of the roster and the inexperience of the roster walking the door.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, when you haven't seen a guy before or a guy like them before, they can kind of get you with the sneak punch on you.
Yeah.
And then once you see him, you're like, okay, that's the deal with them. And then you kind of pick it up really quickly. I do think that could be the case here, because they really haven't done all that much to address that. There's still a lot of Pioneer League talent here, which, frankly, and this is going to be an offensive way to talk about a team that is, 6 games above 500 in the Atlantic League, but, like, this is a roster that could really do damage in the Frontier League. And I'm concerned about it in the Atlantic League because, like I said, you can kind of get the jump on some guys, but once they catch up to you and realize, oh, this is the deal with them, these are guys that pitched largely AA or higher for the better part of the past 5 years. A lot of these guys have seen major league talent on a regular basis over the last 3 or 4 years. So a dude that's in the equivalent of A-ball, high A-ball, should not really be that challenging to them. You're still going to get your hits, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, that comes down to how long are you going to get away with it? And I don't know the answer to that question.
And it should be reiterated to people who aren't as like acquainted. This isn't, get the film out. Like, haven't faced this guy yet. Let's see what he's been doing. Let's break out the baseball savant and break out all the data we've got. Like, if you bring a guy from like the Pioneer League, for instance, to pitch for your team, and like they have had almost no crossover with any of the opponents you're dealing with, like most of these teams might not even know what pitches a guy is throwing until he throws them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you might be like, oh, okay, he's like a fastball cutter, changeup guy, until he, in the second time and through the order, he throws a slider. And like, okay, he throws a slider. Like, that is a legitimate possibility when you're dealing with guys who you just do not have overlap with, and like nobody in your clubhouse has seen him. Which, I mean, you can run into when you're bringing guys from sort of I don't want to say like far flung leagues, but you know what I mean? Like not like the usual suspects coming from like the American or like other affiliate leagues where there's a lot of data on them. And it's very easy to find guys' pitch mixes.
Mm. Yeah, it's just also just a matter of like once you see it, then you know what you're dealing with. And there's only so many tricks a guy's going to have. A dude isn't throwing, especially around here, more than really 4 pitches. You'll have the occasional guy that has 5. But
not well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The 5th pitch is going to be one he throws maybe 10 times an outing if he's a starter.
Yeah,
and if he's
just
a reliever,
to show it. Yeah,
you'll see like once or twice. And it's really like we're deep into an at bat here. And I'm going to throw it so that way maybe I get you swinging on it.
Right.
It's something like that, or if it's like, it's going to be a long relief outing. The starter went 2, maybe 3 innings, got shelled, and now you're being asked, hey, he gave up 5 and 2. We need you to give us 2-3 innings right now because we cannot burn the bullpen here. So we need you to get us through at least 5 or 6 before we hand it off to someone else for 7, 8, 9. And you're like, okay, I'm going to throw this one early in my first outing, just so that way everyone has to worry about me throwing it again later on.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's all a mind game there. So, but realistically, what, 3 pitches we're expecting you to be able to throw well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
I think it's fair.
You can only hide it so much from batters. And if you're a pitcher going against a guy that's hitting like that, I mean, you're going to get figured out within a few games here. It's like, oh, if I throw it down and in, he's not going to ever swing at that. So I just got to hit my spot.
Yeah, and I believe there is data bounce around the Atlantic League right now. So like even if you don't face him directly, like every time you go out, you're putting something on the record, and they're going to know what they're dealing with for the most part when they face you. So yeah, exposure is not your friend in that situation, and we'll see if that's a threat to Lexington or not. Here, another one we're going to find out soon.
Exactly. Let's see here. I do want to briefly mention, because I have a bunch of teams written down here, but I do want to make sure we get to everybody this week. We have 2 other leagues to talk about. Just quickly looking at the 2 series, I had to highlight last week that have played here. I'd like to name 3 each week to watch. But Staten Island Lexington was one of them. And Staten Island dropping off 3 is definitely concerning. You mentioned that series a second ago talking about Lexington, but to look at it from the Staten Island perspective here, that is a team that is not looking great right now, buddy.
No,
they falling off hard.
Yeah, I mean they've spiraled back to earth pretty bad. 8-1 start. They're 2-7 since that start.
Yeah,
they have Gastonia this weekend, which talk about a big series for both. Damon Dews is still crushing it though for them. Looked good. Scheffler, Fontana, like they have some guys who are still really delivering. It's just feeling like and it's starting to feel like they're in one of those weird cycles of, I don't want to chalk it all up to bad luck, but it is stuff like they're getting a bunch of hits, but not timely. So, you're getting hits that if constructed differently could give you 7 runs in a game, but they got you 4 or 3. And then, or you score a bunch of runs, but your pitching also had their blow up game of the week then, and just bad timing. So there is a little bit of that I feel like happening, but also like, it does feel like, there's some signs of that they're worth worrying about if you're them.
Yeah, I mean, the fall off of the starting pitching is really what I'm coming down to here. McSweeney is doing what he needs to do. 4 starts of 18 innings rather. He's looked good in them. Admittedly, I'd like a little bit more, length out of those starts and 5 innings less than. So not quite reaching what I'd like, but everybody else, I mean, Mahoney over 5, Allegretti over 5, Mejia 6. You look at Williamson, who ran out there for 2 starts, but didn't even get 4 innings out of those, over 8. Chris Capuano had 3 starts and just not looked good. Period. You want to look at each of those 3 starts, he's given up 5 earned in each of them. I mean, that's a rough go, and frankly, they've kind of gotten worse with each start. And he was the guy that they used to really rely on, and they lost what should be one of their premier arms.
Yeah, it's definitely, they're going to need to bring in, I think also we're seeing other teams making a concerted effort, I should say, to improve. And I feel like I don't have 100% confidence that Staten Island can do that. It's not a Mark Minikazi issue. It's more of they just don't have a track record of it yet. He has shown his ability to build a team over the course of a year, but Staten Island feels like they tend to wilt as the year continues. Last year it looked a little different, so that's what I'm trying to take optimistically, but like I worry that okay, we're on a slide now. I'm interested to see what moves get made, or maybe it is no moves, just they need things to fall a little differently and they'll be fine. But if they continue to slide this way and not show that they're going to add or make changes, I think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned about the pitching. Is really where I keep coming back to. I don't see enough
They're
on that.
getting tagged by not the most impressive offenses too.
That's the thing here. I'm looking at the guys that they were beating up on early in the year, and you beat up on Hagerstown. Good, supposed to do that. They jumped Long Island for a rough start to the first few games. Then Long Island got them back. Charleston tagged them there. You have this Gastonia series here, which is going to be big for both of them, to be quite honest. And that was the other one I wanted to watch last week. And really, this could either be where Gastonia begins to save their first half, or where Staten Island really begins to lose control of it. And on the flip side, you come out of that and you have Long Island, and that's the other one of two series I have to look at. Actually, both of them involve Staten Island, Long Island. They're back to back. Everything from the 20th through the 25th next week is Long Island, Staten Island. Starts at the Ferry Hawks, goes to the Ducks afterwards. Right there is a critical swing for you. Long Island's hot right now. They're getting back to it. They've really responded strongly. And if you're a Staten Island team here, I don't think it's much of an exaggeration to say the next 9 games determine your first half.
Yep.
I think it really does, because then you have Lancaster, which should be, 6 there is what it is. Barnstormers have not looked strong, but they're a second half team. We know that, so we don't worry about that. But you come back to York, you come back to Lancaster, and then it's High Point, Hagerstown, High Point, York. I mean, that could become very, very difficult as you start to get to the middle of June. And then back to Long Island, back to York, back to Long Island to end the first half.
Yeah, this could get out of control.
Exactly. This can begin to spiral very quickly. In this 9-game stretch here, I think you need 6 of the 9 to really feel like, okay, we're back in control of this.
I think that's fair. I'm trying to think. I mean, were you going to who else did we have on the Atlantic League conversation?
I just wanted to quickly touch on Gastonia before we move on to it. The other two should be fairly quicker this week.
Before we go south, I do want to mention Long Island is absolutely red hot. When won 9 of 12, they won 5 of 6 this past week. In the last 8 games, they've only allowed 17 runs. And Zach Plesac, who I expressed concern with, and he did have a difficult first couple outings, did drop, I think, 6 or 7 really good innings on Lancaster, which again, who knows what that means, because Lancaster's a mess, but it was encouraging if you were a Ducks fan. So that's good to see.
Which,
plus, as I've said before, the league is better when the Ducks are bad or good, the bad guy. So as a indie ball fan, I'm like, yes, the Empire strikes back.
Oh, we're going to be talking about Empires in just a little bit here.
Yeah, oh my God.
Talking about Quebec. I mean, dear Lord.
Dropping a fat 22 spot on somebody.
Really?
Dropping a double deuce?
A duck deuce.
Nice.
Yeah, so Gastonia real quickly, talk about them and their current free fall.
It's weird because it's not blatantly obvious what's going on. The pitching results aren't very good, but they have some guys who are pitching well. It seems like a depth issue where, and it's not even consistent, who the depth issues are. It's like they will hand the ball to somebody who's been good and all of a sudden he'll get lit up. And it's just, again, untimely the way it's going. And then on the other side, you got weird things like Patrick Mazeka really struggling. The bottom of the order is just sort of not what you would think from a roster that looked like it was going to be, or at least a very consistent lineup. And I feel like every night there's 2 or 3 okay, that's going to kill a rally at some point. And I'm not saying this isn't the team that's going to get it done. I'm saying that this team is not getting it done right now. That might, I don't think, I think Mazeka just hit the injured list, maybe. But he's not been playing well. But like, I'll be interested to see like some of these other guys. There's some inconsistency. I wonder if they like snap out of it, or is this just going to be who they are when put together? So I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it.
Like you said, the roster construction would entail that this be a better team than what we've received so far.
Yeah.
There's too much talent to be doing this. And there are individual performers there, Justin Wiley being the most notable of them. He's showing up. De La Rosa is showing up. Quite frankly, a lot of the offense is, for the most part, Roeder, Guthrie, Martin. That's a fine top four there. But you mentioned Mazika, but Ryan Heimer hasn't really been doing it either. Like, those guys towards the bottom part of the lineup need to step up here. And pitching-wise, again, there's no starting pitching right now. There's Hartman.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's about it. I mean, Gray's serviceable for what he's doing, but then Espinal and Smith are not getting it done. Wells is not getting it done. You cannot have a regular starter with an ERA over 11 at this point in the year, right? If you're having a regular starter that's going, 3 innings to start, that's an opener. And they have a couple guys like that. And that's a serious, serious problem that you got to address. And even Hartman here is really an opener. 2 games started, 6 innings pitched. That's not good enough.
Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, there's, if I'm being optimistic,
yes,
they started 0-5, and I went over those where they lost 2 straight games to York in extras to start the season. The third game, they had a bad one, but they were in a tough spot because they had a doubleheader the next day with High Point. Going from the 3-game set with York straight into the doubleheader the next day, they lost both to High Point on that one. Like, it is not. Since then, they are 1 game below 500. So this isn't like a fully sinking ship here. So that's worth noting. I think also this team has like really good positional versatility. And I was surprised to see like they're not higher in errors, because I've watched a bunch of the games because there's a lot of like, what the hell is going on with Gastonia right now? And there's like odds and ends like catch where I'm like, that's maybe not where I would have gone with that ball or whatever. And I do wonder if sometimes like versatility and lack of expertise in one area, like a jack of all trades, master of none situation. And I wish I'd come up with more specifics other than going back to the first weekend I was there. But like the one game, it was like the Saturday night game when I was there. Like there was like just some couple questionable decisions with like what to do with the ball and like where to, like, just weird moves, and it cost them runs late in the game. They ended up losing it. And it's like, I don't remember the specifics on it, but there's been a few instances of like, I'm not sure I would have done that. I'll try keeping on it this week and see if I bring it better prepared next week. Yeah. I sometimes wonder if it's almost like a doing too much. It's like, I know there's a lot of good options, but maybe just have a shortstop. Just have that. That's just random. I'm not saying they don't have one, but I'd have to check who's doing what positionally. But
I hear what you're saying, though, that you don't like always have to go for the high level talent, and the guys don't always have to be trying for the big move. You sometimes just have to get a guy that can just do their job and not try to do more than that. I do think a lot of times when you do get these former major league guys or high level talent guys, obviously for everybody playing indie ball, but especially those higher end guys, their end goal isn't just playing good ball. It's to get back to affiliated ball or to get to Mexico. And you're not going to do that by just playing your role. You're going to do it by standing out. And so I do think sometimes that may be a little lost in translation.
Yeah, that might be it. I don't know. I'm going to have to watch more because, again, it's hard to pinpoint exactly. And as I said, it's not like it's been a nightmare run. They've played in a stretch that included that's had 1 against High Point, 3 against Lancaster, 3 more against High Point, 3 more against High Point, 3 against Long Island. So all good teams. They have been 1 game below 500. So I'm having the record makes you want to panic, but I am looking at like if they're still struggling. It's tough though, because like they don't, because you want to be like, oh, Staten Island, but Staten Island was playing really well a week ago. Then they play Lexington, but Lexington's at the top of the standings. High Point is also High Point. Then Southern Maryland, who's winning games. So I'm like, where is the the easy series here to really figure out what we're doing? I don't know, man. That's not that also not helping.
Yeah, I mean, at least a lot of these losses were closer, really.
Yes,
I mean,
agree.
like the
They're
High
not getting
Point
played
series.
off the field.
Yeah, 3-4 loss, 3-6 loss, 9-10 loss, 4-2, 5-3. I mean, Long Island was one of the series we wanted to watch last week. This one that just wrapped up yesterday, and of course, a 7-3 loss, but then a 2-4, 5-2 win. You know, those are fairly close. So I don't think I think there's a lot more that you can still take from this.
And that Long Island loss was a closer game than it looked. That was one where they gave up, I think, a 4 or 5 spot early, and then basically played it out even down the stretch. Yeah, so tough one. See Freddie DeJesus take one off the dome yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago now?
I did not, but Freddie taking
it. It was a weird one, buddy. It was I think it was a foul ball that bounced and then came up and hit him, which was a short joke there. But like went just down, dude. And he got back up on his own power, but like dang, Freddie. Head on a swivel, big dog. Give him one of the shields.
I guess we can go to the association now.
Yeah, man. I have less thoughts on the association. I watched a lot of Atlantic and Frontier this week, so.
See, and I was focusing more association, so this will be decent.
Okay, that works.
Yep, which just as a quick aside here, because since we were talking about Southern Maryland, I started looking at other Maryland teams to try and see if we could do more than just one team in Maryland. But on Friday, June 6th, at the Aberdeen Ironbirds, you know what night it is? It's perfect for you.
What?
It is Conspiracy Theory Night.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. Unfortunately, I think I'm out of town.
Ah, damn. All right, well.
Yep.
Definitely going to PNC and see Halsey, are you?
I think I'm seeing a far more obscure band in Virginia Beach.
First week of the association's now in the books. We have some stuff that we can draw on, but honestly, it is still very early to draw any sort of conclusion. We are only, for most teams, about 6% of the way done with the season. So not too much we could draw on. Initial thoughts, though. Kansas City looks to be back a little bit, and Sioux City pitching very, very well. Very, very well. Winnipeg, a little bit of a rut to start, too, which is a little concerning.
Rough start.
But they've played some good teams. And at this point, anyone that has a rough start, for the most part, played a hot team to start. So
right, that's kind of where I'm at with like Kansas City, actually, because like Winnipeg looks bad early, and they played Lincoln and swept them. So I'm kind of like, well, they're playing Sioux City next. We'll see how that goes. But Sioux City's been kind of weird, so I don't know what to make of any of this right now. It's kind of been a child. Well, I guess Sioux City looked good. The 2 games I watched for Sioux City, they didn't look good. And of course, they look good in every other game, so I'll shut my mouth. But
that being said, though, the pitching staff has looked very strong early on. ERA as a group is around 1.5, and they have a whip collectively of 1.13, and you're keeping teams to hitting under the Mendoza line against. They're slugging under 240 against. They've looked really strong so far. Granted, small sample size, 6 games here, but they're averaging close to 10, 11 strikeouts a game thus far. So overall, can't really complain about that. Bats have been cold for them, so that's the flip side of it. But regardless, they have been looking fairly good in the early going. Curious to see how that plays out for them. And likewise, Sioux Falls has been hitting the ball pretty strong in the early going.
Yeah. I mean, that's not surprising for a Sioux Falls team. I think the big surprise for Winnipeg is just how many runs they're giving up. I mean, because Winnipeg, you look, they're, kind of struggling, and then you realize they're tied for the league lead in runs scored. And it kind of makes you go, oh, okay. Then how have we arrived here, friends? And it's just, a series of unfortunate events, essentially. But, yeah, I mean, they've lost some close games, but played some good competition. They've got so with Cleveland and Kansas City. But when it comes to some of these other teams, you mentioned Sioux Falls, it's really hard, because I'm even looking at the Atlantic League. We just talked about the Atlantic League 1 weekend. We're like, wow, this team looks good. That team looks good. And then we realized, well, oh, they look good because they beat Gastonia, and then Gastonia all of a sudden is like 6-12. We're like, okay, that has aged poorly. So I don't even know what to make of some of these, early series results at this point.
Yeah, I'm not taking too much into it right now. I mean, Fargo's another one where I'm trying to draw conclusions from that, and I'm not really getting all that much from it.
Yeah.
But that, of course, being said, I think as far as Winnipeg is concerned, it's a tough road because Kansas City has been slugging the ball a lot. One of the guys I wanted to highlight here, because I do have about 4 names to talk about, because I don't have too much for as far as teams go, but Isaiah Gillum has been phenomenal so far to start. Splash line looking like 458, 552, 1,042, 6 extra base hits so far across 6 games. I mean, that's pretty damn good here.
Right.
I look at that and I say, this is a dude that's really powering things along. And it's the kind of guy that I don't know if he's necessarily bound for affiliated ball, but I do think he is bound to go to Mexico at some point if he continues this run. Now, of course, that's just been 1 week. He could very easily crater and fall off in no time at all. But at that same point in time, it's really been a powerhouse for the Monarchs thus far and kept them afloat.
Yeah, sorry, I am like all over the place on point streak right now. Not helpful. That'd be on Baseball Reference, but thanks, American Association, I guess.
Yeah, who's to blame for that?
I don't know. I'm gonna fight them though, that's for sure.
If someone in the league could answer that question, I should probably just reach out and ask them myself.
Yeah, probably don't need to be super passive aggressive about it, but here we are. I'm interested what a couple teams are going to look like here. Like Lake Country's 4-1 start, is that legit? Brian Ray has obviously looked insane. 4 home runs already, 9 for 20 to start the season, so that's a fascinating development. But other than that, I mean, there's just a lot of wait and see going on now in the American.
Very nice there. One of the few bright spots so far for King County, a team that has gotten off to a bit of a championship slump, as it would seem.
Though don't overlook. I think Fargo might be pretty good. I think this is a good bounce back club right now.
I still like Fargo. I'd have to go back in my notes to see what I haven't projected at, but I do like them as a team.
Right. Yeah. Because I know they made a couple teams look bad here in the early going. And it's like, well, hang on, because that might be that those losses might age better as we learn more about this Fargo team.
Yeah, no, I had a lot written down here for Fargo. I had well over a dozen players knocked down here, and I am at 55.5 wins. So I clearly viewed them well.
Right.
I believe I had them. Yeah, I had them finishing right behind Winnipeg for second in the division. So at least part of that's beginning to age well.
Right.
Actually, I had Fargo as my surprise team this year too. So pro Red Hawk.
What else do you have? Any other thoughts? I hate to cut the American short this week, but it literally is just by chance the league I saw less of over the past few days.
Yeah, I don't have all too much else here. I will say I mentioned Sioux Falls a second ago for their offense, and I just want to round back to them. Hitting nearly 300 as a team, slugging over 500 as a team, 10 stolen bags already. They get on base, 20 walks, and 28 extra base hits through to 6 games. I understand that the Birdcage is conducive to extra base hits. You get something in the gap, you're probably stretching from 2, and it would normally be 1 in a lot of other places. But still, the offense is nice to see from them. You mentioned Brian Ray and his down for a week, or probably your 1-2 for MVP, but again, it's a week. Right. It's too early to talk about that. As far as pitching goes, Connor Ash and Kyle Marmon are both very, very good so far here. Both of them striking out a lot of guys, 20 and 14. Looking at Marmon to Ash, both with a 1 and 5 or lower. Both of them with less than 5 walks. Both of them with less than 10 hits allowed. Both of them have thrown 2 starts so far, and looked like they're averaging about 6 to 7 innings per start. So, I mean, exactly what you want out of a starting pitcher at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
So, on that note, we go to the last league and last thing for the week, which is, of course, the Frontier League. Also, just wrapping up their first week. I have a few things written down here because this is a very interesting league with a wide disparity in talent. And the first thought I have here, especially after spending some time in Sussex over the past week, is Sussex? 6-1. I understand
Yeah.
competition, but they've looked pretty good.
Right.
So far.
I'm chalking this up to competition for the most part right now. They're gonna have to show me a lot more against a lot of other teams. I don't know, man. I hate to be a bummer on that, but I'm not fully bought in here.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
you saw
I'm
them,
looking
so you might know better than me, but
Here's the thing. The part that surprises me the least is the stolen bases. That is a quick team. There's a lot of guys that
okay.
come really fast. They seem to be playing that small ball kind of style to get on base. I mean,
Mhm.
30 walks, 10 hit by pitch. They're getting on the hard way, but they are making these, single bag opportunities and to get to second base pretty consistently. I think they're 22 or 29 for stolen bases there to show they do have a desire to run. Again, we didn't have high thoughts on Brockton. We didn't have high thoughts on Three Rivers. These are two of the three teams that we were really kind of down on. So
Mhm.
I reserve judgment on that for now. That being said, though, it is encouraging. They are hitting a bit too, which is nice. Not for power, although they do have a couple of guys like Ken. They're really not showing that yet. But it is encouraging to start. And in a league where you only play 96 games, and in a league where, as we're about to transition to, your division is so important, and the division so far has been very underwhelming. Building up that kind of lead early can really help you in the long stretch, especially when the team that I think we're all still expecting to win this division and expect to turn it around in the Boulders have been struggling mightily so far.
Yeah. And that's my thing with Sussex. I'm taking less away from their early wins because if you look at this division, you've got 4 teams. We've assumed 3 will be pretty bad: Sussex, Down East, and New Jersey, and that would free up New York to run away with it. I think the 2 things so far that have been surprises is how bad New York looked so far against Lake Erie and Tri-City, and then on the other side is the gap that is between Sussex and New Jersey and Down East. So I think that is interesting and indicates, some potential here. But at the same time, I won't feel confident until I've seen New York play, play Brockton, until I've seen New York play like the level of competition Sussex has been playing, right? So basically what we know is how, Down East and New Jersey, as predicted, don't look good. But then the question marks remaining are, where does that, leave Sussex? So I'm sorry, I guess to straighten this out, New Jersey illustrated they are better than Down East. Down East illustrated they're worse than everybody. Sussex has not really proven themselves in the order. They just showed that maybe they are a little better than the other bad teams. And New York maybe showed that maybe they're not as good. They're not that much better than the bad teams. So where does that all shuffle out? That's what we have to start figuring out here in the upcoming games.
Yeah, I think the Tri-City series this weekend, which is one of my ones to watch in this league, is really a telling one. So that series is really going to be telling for me. And then I look at a series like New York, Ottawa next week, towards the end of next week. That's a telling one for me as well, because those are both teams that are, in my eyes, kind of equal, at least in the same tier. And both have struggled early on. And I think it tells us an awful lot there. My biggest thing here is with Sussex, we need to see this against better teams. And I think a series win against Tri-City would do a lot for me to say, okay, maybe they are those guys, right? Because you're 7 games into a 96 right now. They'll come out 10 into it. And by this time next week, you'll be, about a 1/8 of the way through the season, right? So,
that tracks.
Yeah, if you will get to next week at this point, having played in essentially another 5 games, and you're already at, say, 10, 11 wins, you put yourself in a really strong position for a playoff spot here, right? Because even if New York comes back up here, Jackals don't look like they're going to be a playoff team. Down East certainly doesn't look it. Brockton doesn't look it. three. Look at so now all of a sudden you're looking like Tri-City and Ottawa as the two that you're fighting for those two spots. And
someone has to win it.
So you figure you can get in the door. And once you're in the door, anything can happen. So I want to make a lot of this start. They haven't played the best teams, but 7 games in is very much what you want to see. And in the same vein, Boulders have been screwed by weather a lot too. They've been rained out a lot. But starting 0-4 is never a good look. Let's quickly take a look at their schedule here before we move on to another team to talk about, because there's a couple teams I really want to get to here. They have Brockton starting today. And then and they go to Quebec. So this could get worse before it gets better. But once they get through the Quebec series, they go play 3 in Ottawa, and then they're back home not next week, the week after, and they have 3 Rivers, they have Down East, they have New Jersey, they have 3 Rivers. And that should set you up really good going into June. Then they get a couple of prove-it series against the Boulders. I'll probably try to get up to Sussex for that one. And then you have Gateway and then Quebec again. So I'm not going to hit the panic alarm on them until we get to, say, June 1, right? When we record that first episode in June, if they still are struggling, then I'm going to be very concerned. But until then, it is what it is.
Yeah, we saw, things can go pretty far. Remember the lead that the Boulders were holding last year. They looked really dominant pretty late into toward mid-season even they're holding it. So things can pretty quickly flip in the Frontier League. 96 games is a long time in a league like that. So we'll see.
Exactly. I'm curious to see how it all winds up shaking out there. Quebec is really the last team I want to highlight here. 7-0. We've been talking about it all day here. They just bodied Windy City earlier today. The real question here is, and we may jinx it, and they may lose to Windy City tonight before this comes out, but how many are they going to win?
Windy City has not looked
good. Because here's the thing, right?
Yeah, I just watched 2 Windy City games back to back, and I was not impressed in either of them. One was an 8-7 loss; it didn't seem that bad, but they had opportunities and still couldn't seal a deal. That was after a 15-3 loss to Schaumburg. They've lost 5 in a row. Do I think Windy City's going to find a way to get one of these off Quebec, buddy? And then Quebec has 2 off days in a row after the Saturday game.
Before they open home.
And they only use 2 pitchers. So basically every pitcher is available for them right now. And then they go to go home. No. Quebec's back to Quebec schedule.
Yeah, they go back to Quebec after they get through Windy City. They
play New York, who still hasn't won.
Then they get Tri-City and then Brockton. Then New Jersey again. And then they get a bunch against Down East in North Carolina.
They're going to drop on the Tri-City games, probably. They might drop on the New York ones. I think
that's kind of where I'm at.
Let's hedge it. I'll say it gets to 10.
10 is kind of where I'm at. I'm thinking they could get to 11. 12 is tough. I agree. I think they're going to get to at least 10. I could see it getting to 12 or 13. But by the time we talk about this in June, I think we are going to have the conversation of, can you believe they've only lost 2 games? I think they're only losing 2 more in this month.
Ooh.
I think they're genuinely
I don't think they drop one. Yeah, so that includes 1 Jersey game. I don't think they lose that. That includes 3 Brockton games. They beat the hell out of Brockton last season, if I remember right. I think they drop 1 in New York, 1 in Tri-City.
Yes, I agree. Right. Yeah. And then you have Down East. Here's the thing. It's genuinely possible, right, that they win, 6, 12 in a row?
They 13 could in a row? Oh, my God.
Dude, they can have 13
This could be a 24-3 start, realistically.
Yeah, genuinely, it doesn't get tough again
until down.
Yeah, it doesn't get tough again until you get to that Ottawa series, and that's at home at least. I'm curious to see about that series the first time they go down to Skylands. If the Miners keep this up, I'm very curious about that because they won't have an off day and they got to go from Quebec City down to Skylands, play the next day. That's interesting to me there. I think that could definitely be something to watch. but you know, that's a
And
month
this
away.
is something the Frontier League might need to figure out in the future from a competition standpoint. The way things are split right now, if you just look at the Atlantic East, we are discussing which team sucks the least. One of them has to go to the playoffs. Is it New York, who is still winless? Is it Sussex, who should be terrible, but they're 6-1 because they're playing bad teams? In the North, we're looking at Ottawa, who is off to a slow start, Trois-Rivières, who is not competitive, Brockton, who is not competitive, Tri-City, who is good, but we do not think they are. We're talking about if they'll win one against Quebec in the next three, which I think is the typical arrangement for them playing each other. And that's it. Like, there is one team in that top tier for the Atlantic. Then if you look at the Midwest, I mean, Joliet's not good. When you say is bad, Mississippi's bad. That's another conversation, and we have to have. Florence is not good. Evansville's, so you have 5 teams that are good to okay on that side, and like 1 to 2 in the other side. It's not a great competitive arrangement, and I think they're going to need to kind of iron that out a little bit, and that might adjust over time as things adapt. But when you do restructure a league, it does tend to adapt because you have to, like, we can't really compete for a playoff spot now because of our new division setup. So teams to elevate as well. So that will start to iron out. But it's a tough look right now that, like, we're sitting here being like, is Quebec going to go 24-3 to open the season?
I think also part of the problem too is there's not too many organizations that are on Quebec's level as a whole.
No,
like,
which is what it is. I mean,
more.
there's only so much you can do about that, but it is like, you'd like to think at least, we're not looking at, will they be able to make it through 2? Like, will they only lose 2 games? I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, it still shouldn't be that it's that far ahead. I mean, like some of the other teams that are towards the top here, you have a bunch of teams that have only lost 1 because they haven't played that many yet. But like, even Gateway has looked a bit shaky in some of those games against Mississippi. They've won them, but they weren't overwhelming wins. Schaumburg has gotten some nice wins over Windy City and Joliet. They've had some scares as well. Quebec really hasn't had scares, which is partially quality of opponent, partially quality of team. I mean, like, Joliet spooked them on a 2-0 game, and then New Jersey in the back half of a doubleheader in a 2-1. That was after Quebec beat them through the mat. So, like, it is interesting. I'm not going to panic about lack of parity yet. I want to see it play out more than just a week. Again, for me, I keep going back to June, but that's kind of in my mind where it's like, okay, we'll have a month of sample size to look at here. We'll be able to draw a lot of conclusions come like mid-June, end of June. That's when I'm going to start to go, all right, well, we got, 30 games or so in the books now.
Mm-hmm.
We should have some, yeah.
And it's not like the division was super interesting last year. The interest was the fact that New York only played bad teams to start the year. And they played good teams and got absolutely washed. So I guess if you look at the North, there's no issue. They have maybe the finest indie ball organization of all time, and a team's trying to keep up, and that's difficult. That's going to happen. My concern is more having the competitive situation in the East Division, where we are really, it's not like, oh, this division's a little different than we thought because there's more competition. It's that it's just every team is bad. Every team's bad. I mean, the Boulders, even if the Boulders are competitive and playing well, I don't think we're going to look at them as a legit threat unless there's some changes made here. I don't know. It's hard for me to get excited about the East Division or the North Division. That's my problem. Like, I wish I could. If this was on the show, I'm simming the season.
Now, here's the one thing I will point out here, and it's kind of hard to say because Tri-City's like the last kind of legit series the minors have until the end of the month, because after this they go to Three Rivers for 3, then they come back home for New Jersey for 3, and then they go out to Windy City for 3. After that, they have Gateway at Gateway for 3. So if we get to, I'm going to look through when they have some real series, because then they have to pair for some reason. They just play 2 back-to-back day games randomly against Three Rivers before going up to Ottawa. Makes no sense to me, but whatever. With 3 off days, that's a weird configuration of that schedule, but okay. Then they go play Ottawa for 3 at Ottawa, and then they come back home. Got 3 against New York, 3 against Quebec. So then back Ottawa, Quebec again. So by the end of June, right, they will have played some good opponents. July 1, we'll call it. If July 1, the Miners still have a record that's at least 5 games above 500, are you willing to call them a good team at that point? Because I'll admit that I don't expect New Jersey to do anything particularly impressive, beat the bad teams, do what they're expected to do. I don't expect Down East to do much. First-year organization, first year pretty much everything in indie ball for everybody. I don't have high expectations for them. Don't be an embarrassment. That's your assignment. When are we willing to start considering some of these teams we didn't have high expectations for good, despite who they are playing?
I mean, I guess we'll just consider them relatively good. You know, it's just a different scale. Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're hanging around 500, you know, third of the way into the season, sure. But it depends on who I don't know, man.
Well, see, that's the problem for anybody, though, in the East here, is right? When half of the teams in your division, we have low expectations for out of the gate. And the one team that we were like, yeah, they'll be the ones, now start to fail. Off the bat, like 2/3 of their schedule is not going to be full of impressive wins, and there's nothing they can really do about it, good or not. I mean, look at Quebec here. At least they're going to have Ottawa and Tri-City that were, at least for the time being, going to say, I mean, they're better than the record says they are. So their wins will look better. Quebec's wins will look better by proxy of that. But there's only so much you can do with your schedule, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. You just got to play a schedule in front of you. And in the end, we won't really know what's going on until we see it. And we see them play, you know, the teams that we are more confident are good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be curious. Just to kind of wrap up the Frontier League talk here, a couple of things I want to point out. Schaumburg, Evansville, this upcoming week, 20-22. Series to watch for me, in addition to Sussex and Tri-City. I'll probably be watching a lot of that series, both of those this week. And then just want to highlight 2 other teams here, one in a good way, one in a bad way. Tri-City being one of the ones in a good way here, 2.25 ERA so far with a 1.14 whip. Opponents are batting below the Mendoza at 197. They've struck out 33 while walking only 15, allowing only 26 hits in those 36 innings pitched. Pitching staff has looked very good for them. Their offense is concerning to me, and that could be what the Miners use for them. It's been a heavy Miner episode. I didn't mean for it to be, and just kind of turned into it.
Well, they're 6-1.
Exactly, they're 6-1. They're the anomaly, 6-1. Like you see, Quebec
Gateway 5-1, like Erie at 4-1, Quebec at 7-0. That's all inside their normal realm of expectation.
Yeah, this is the kind of outlier here. Good for them. So I'm curious to see how the probables wind up shaking out for this series. But yeah, offensively, I mean, they've been better, Tri-City. They're batting nearly 300 actually, so they're not terrible there. No power really to speak of outside Campos, but that's again to be expected. I guess almost like mirrors of each other here, only we expect a little bit more out of the Tri-City side of life here. So we'll see how that goes. 4 triples for them. 5 triples for Tri-City already. Oh, no. It is 4. I miscounted them. But still, 4 through 4 games is
notable.
Crazy. Yeah, very interesting. But so that's fun to watch there. And then on just the negative side, I just want to touch on it. Down East, I understand it's early. An ERA of 8 is just crazy to see. Yeah. Opponents batting 325 off you and slugging 404 in just 36 innings pitched, 6 games. It's crazy, and a whip that's not terribly far away from a 2 doesn't bode well either here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk too much about it. I don't want to be negative. I want to avoid it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Give them some time to breathe. We'll see. But
exactly. And there really it's been 4 games, not to miscount. 4, not 6.
Also say, we let Haggers down pretty off the hook when we're talking Atlantic League because they're like a run and a half worse than every other pitching staff.
Oh yeah, no, they're abysmal there. So I will
Yeah.
point out that Pino in down east looking good power wise. 3 home runs in 3 games.
Yeah.
So
It's been a silver lining for sure, which is nice.
yeah, and Trey
I'll also
Law
say,
too.
not trying to be negative, but I will also say Mississippi is maybe we're a little too excited about them.
We'll see. I'll give them time. But yeah, I do think the upper part of this down east roster is decent. You know, Masterman, Pino, DeTomaso looks decent. Smith and Law look decent. Also batting wise, it's just pitching wise, man. It's outside like Thurston, Johnston.
Hmm.
Really, I'm trying to see here, and it's not even really the starters per se. It's just that bullpen's not doing it. The bullpen's really not doing it, and you're still stretching your starters out. So they're only going to give you 4 or 5 innings, and then it's just like the back half is where it starts to go to hell. It looks
I
like.
know. And it's like, are you going to try to stretch them more? Like that's going to make that worse. So that's where you end up in a real situation. And it's really early to find yourself in that situation.
Exactly. So like, I'm curious to see how this winds up shaking itself out here. I'm going to give it time before I start to really, talk about, oh, wow, this team's horrible. But, they got New Jersey for 3 at Hinchcliffe starting tonight before they go back home to take Mississippi for a while. I think 6 of them. So they'll have 9 games here where I do kind of hope that you're at least 3-6 on that stretch. I would hope for more than that. I'd hope around 500 in that stretch. But who's to really say here? Doesn't really get easier on them for a while. So I would like to see something more than what we've gotten so far. But like I said, it's a learning year. Results are not so much my concern at the moment.
Trying to think if I have anything else here. I don't know that I do.
All right. So also apparently the Three Rivers team got sold, it looks like.
Oh.
Yes, the company Location Viewport has become the majority owner of the team.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that next week. This happened 2 days ago, and I just saw it now. So we'll bookmark that for a later point in time. But yeah. So that does it for us here this week. We will go to the plugs now, and just quickly before we do that, I will say apologies for the audio there for the American Association segment. Power went out. I had to switch to AirPods for a second, so if the audio is a little messed up, apologies on that end. But it was unfortunately necessary there, and likewise Tuesday they'll have the final preview, the Pioneer League preview, and we'll be in full swing after that. So yeah. On that note, plugs. You got them, give them.
Indie Ball Nation, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, podcast platforms. Trying to finally get previews out and stuff. I'm just trying to get through preview season because I have a bunch of other stuff I just want to be doing. So keep an eye out. Should have stuff come out this weekend because I'm wipes out of town, which means Indie Ball weekend.
Full degeneracy weekend. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, man. That's the vibe.
Yeah, so at Indie Ball Pod on Twitter, Indie Ball Report everywhere else, have a bunch of off-season stuff that I meant to put out that I gotta create and put out so that we're caught up before we get in full swing season. And yeah, I guess next week we'll have the in-season format in full swing. We'll start doing that, and hopefully we'll be able to iron out everything and anything in regards to the in-season schedule that we really want to get done. We have some exciting stuff coming up in the show and on both individual ends, so stay tuned for that. So on that note, that's all we got for you this week. We will talk to you on Tuesday with the Pioneer League preview, but until then, don't forget to play ball.